Today's show is sponsored by Indie Film Hustle's Filmmaker process. We provide filmmakers with professional services to get their films or series funded, finished, and distributed. For more information, go to filmmakerprocess.com. Your first feature, Fandango, you hired a little unknown actor at that time. I think Kevin something or other. I don't even know if he's doing anything anymore. Mr. Costner, Kevin Costner, you hired him, and he actually has become in your career a collaborator for a lot of big films that you worked on. How was it working with like putting Fandango together? And because I remember watching Fandango, there's such a youthful energy. It's created by young filmmakers, acted by young filmmakers, and you can sense that energy there. How was it like putting that whole thing together, and also having Big Daddy Spielberg like in the shadows? Must have been terrifying.
It was an interesting experience. I mean, it was just kind of handed to me. Okay, go make this movie, but I knew it had to be an expanded version of Proof. So I had to write a movie backwards. I had to. Right. How do I take this one sequence and make an entire feature around it? And I mean, unfortunately, I think Steven expected it to be more like Animal House, which is sort of the quality a little bit of Proof. But I guess at the time I wanted to do something a little more soulful. And like so many filmmakers, it was that sort of, my first film was that sort of quintessential coming of age story that everybody has to get out of their system before they can move on to something else. And that's sort of where I found myself as I sat down to write it. And I think it was more soulful, which I don't think was a bad thing, but I think it was not necessarily what some people expected it to be. And as for Costner, I actually met him when I was in film school, because when I was making Proof, he came in and read for the part in the student film. He was the stage manager at Raleigh Studios in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. He was sweeping floors trying to get gigs as an actor, and he came in and read for the part, and I really liked him, but I cast somebody else, as you can see in Proof. But I called him and I said, "Look, man, I'm sorry. I thought you were great. I really liked you, but I don't know why. I've cast this other guy." And he was, very gracious and thanked me and all. And then, like a couple years later, when we were actually making Fandango and casting it, he came in again to read for it. And we remembered each other and we talked, and, I remembered him very well. And he sat down to read for the part of Gardner Barnes, and literally within the first two lines out of his mouth, I knew he was the guy. And
did he switch? Did he switch something from 2 years earlier? What made the difference?
I don't know what it was. It was just, I don't know if in those couple of years, he'd done a couple of smaller parts. He was, cutting the Big Chill and stuff. But
he was if I remember correctly, he was a dancing extra in Night Shift, Ron Howard's Night Shift.
He was. But there was just, he had the quality of the character. And I think it was more, he had the quality of the character in the expanded version, because Gardner Barnes in Fandango is a much more complete character with a much deeper arc than the character in the short. And maybe that's what it was that the character himself had changed a lot in those 2 years. And he just fit him. And that's when I cast him.
To watch the rest of this interview, head over to indiefilmhustle.com.